We still live in the age of plastic, but millions of tons of plastic waste continue to pollute the world's forests and oceans. The message about waste has got through to us all, surely. Or is it a case of never enough? Will it be carrot or stick to get us to reduce our waste? Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
Christmas is over, and the only remainder of the feasting are additional pounds, gastronomic regrets, or lack thereof, but also piles of waste. An average 180,000 tons of garbage is generated in Poland in December alone, according to the Polish Recycling Association. As much as 15 to 20% of that waste is discarded plastic packaging. In 2023, Poland generated nearly 123 million tons of trash, around 13.5 million of which was municipal waste. A sizable portion of the garbage ends up in the Baltic Sea. Around 80% of its pollution is waste coming from land, flowing down the Vistula and Oder rivers. A 2024 cleanup operation along the Vistula, its tributaries, and Oder saw 480 tons of waste collected, including 240 of plastic. 165 tons of plastic garbage was gathered in another cleanup of the Oder. But waterborne plastic is not just a Polish, but also a global issue. While 400 million metric tons of plastic are currently produced per year, that number is expected to rise by 70% by 2040 if business continues as usual. This is problematic. In order to be produced, plastic requires fossil fuels to be burned. In the burning process, greenhouse gases are released into the atmosphere, contributing to the increase in the Earth's temperature. The plastic that degrades in marine environments also releases greenhouse gases such as methane and ethylene. The OECD found that in 2019, plastics generated 1.8 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emissions in 2019, representing 3.4% of global emissions. Without intervention, these emissions could rise to 4.3 billion tons by the year 2060. Although the United Nations Environment Assembly adopted a historic resolution in March 2022 aimed at developing an international, legally binding policy instrument on plastic pollution, the fifth session of the so-called Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in Busan this December failed to produce an agreement. The negotiations collapsed because its participants didn't see eye to eye on issues such as how to reduce overall plastic production, how to eliminate certain plastic products, and how to enhance waste management. These negotiations are set to continue in 2025.
I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Anna Larsson, Director of Economic Development, Circular Economy at the Reloop Platform NGO. Welcome to the programme.
Hello.
Plastics. We're going to be talking about plastics today. I was talking to some of the people in the makeup and the studio, and we seem to we can remember a time when it was paper, all the non-plastic packaging for all our food, all our consumer goods, all that sort of stuff. And it seemed to be around the 1960s. Is that an accurate time frame, an accurate era for when this explosion in plastic packaging seemed to start?
That's correct. The explosion actually took place in 70s and 80s, and this is the result of the economic development and also of the flow of products and products in packaging into the world, and especially into the developed world. Of course, now with the urbanization progress, a lot of people live in urbanized areas. We need more transport distances to transport product goods, and of course it requires packaging, including lightweight plastic packaging.
That's something that's going to expand ever more. Urbanization, as you mentioned, the development of a westernized economy in other parts of the world. We're going to have plastic. We can't get rid of it.
That's correct.
Fortunately or unfortunately.
Plastic is a huge challenge, but also opportunity. And as I mentioned, it is necessary to preserve our products, to preserve food. However, what we now need to do in terms of plastic crisis that we can observe in the world is to secure the proper resource management related to the plastic as the material.
There are two things we can have a focus on. Perhaps one of the things is the immediate pollution of plastics, huge islands of plastic floating around in the oceans, dumping plastic stuff into the third world. And then the longer term technological resolution of this crude oil based, as you put it, crude oil based material. How do we get rid of, or how do we tackle the first? How do we tackle the pollution that's flowing around in our environment?
Well, yes, the pollution is a big challenge, and this is the result of the fact that we have uncontrolled waste management and uncontrolled collection of the waste, especially plastic waste. But it is also combined with the litter challenge. Plastic is fantastic, as some would say, but it's also challenging to the environment, as it is lightweight, it is easy to take with us to the nature, but also as easy to leave it there. So when we deploy the systems that will prevent uncontrolled waste, lack of management, actually not waste management, and prevent littering, we will be able to use the plastic material in the proper way that will secure that this material will remain in the economy, in the circular economy, through the closed-loop recycling processes.
Okay, can you explain that to us? Because I'm a bit baffled by how we take our plastic bottles, our everyday, this plastic pen I'm holding, how that fits into a circularized economy. What happens to this plastic pen when I throw it away?
Oh, this plastic pen probably is not recycled. I would say it probably goes to the incineration processes today or to other disposal methods, for example, landfilling. As for plastic bottles, the situation is a little bit different. 16 European countries, as of today, have so-called deposit systems for single-use beverage containers. And some of those countries, including Sweden, where I live, Sweden has managed to close the loop for the plastic bottle, which means that the plastic bottle that I have in my hand in January will become a new plastic bottle after some months and sometimes even weeks. So out of 100 plastic bottles that are placed on the Swedish market, 80 can be utilized for the production of new plastic packaging formats. So in the countries where we have efficient collection system in form of deposit, as you and me remember from our childhood, we were going to a small shop, we bought soda, we got that soda in a bottle, we paid a deposit, and then after consumption, we returned the bottle. It is exactly the same process. However, now it is adopted for the single-use containers, where, of course, instead of refilling, so-called reuse, we provide for the recycling processes. So new bottles are being made of the old bottles, post-consumer bottles that have been collected.
That's a great energy consumer itself, isn't it? It doesn't necessarily give us our net zero option.
It is much better for the climate, as you mentioned, climate, because of the fact that we get rid of the virgin materials, we reuse in a way what is post-consumer waste, what becomes the fantastic substrate for the production of new plastic packaging formats. We save climate. And in addition to that, we also contribute to the development of the local economy, because circular economy is about local green jobs. Is about materials that stay in the country, in the region, are processed in that region through the local people, so it has a lot of benefits.
In Europe, we have a very sophisticated consumer base, not necessarily as disciplined perhaps as a Swedish society to join in these consumer recycling projects. If that's the case, who is the main polluter of the oceans? Who actually makes these islands? And is that our fault? Is that China, India, or the emerging economies of the world?
I would not say it's the responsibility of the countries, and I would not say it is responsibility of the consumers. It is responsibility of those who place those products and products in packaging in the markets, which makes producers responsible for the global plastic crisis and anyway, the global waste crisis that we experience today.
So it's a system, if I understand you correctly, a system of carrot and stick. You have an incentive for giving the bottles back and a fine system for the producer.
Yeah, so for the consumer, it works best with the incentive. And you mentioned some differences between different consumers, depending, as I understand you correctly, from different countries they come from. I would disagree with that, because in Scandinavia, where I live, people are the same like people living in Poland. They just have access to better infrastructure, collection infrastructure, and they have had access in terms of deposit system for beverage containers, single-use beverage containers, to the efficient systems. And these systems are based on monetary incentive deposit, which is added to the product price and returned when a consumer brings the packaging format back to the shop. So it is actually the model of extended producer responsibility that should efficiently be adopted also in terms of other products and in terms of other packaging formats.
In the UK, there's it's controversial. In spirit, yes, everybody agrees with segregating waste and this idea of recycling. In practice, though, there are many local councils who fine consumers for not putting the right waste in the right bins. Too many bins for the different conditions of plastic waste or other waste. Is that something that you doubt will happen, or is this a bit about human nature? We need to have a bit more stick as well as carrot.
I would say, after years of experience in waste management branch, that it is always better with a carrot, and actually this carrot is transferred into what we call today a pay-as-you-throw, so a strategy. We pay for bigger bins if we would like to get rid of more residual waste and not sort. Okay, that's fine. You as a consumer, you have right to do that, but then you should pay more, because it costs more to send this category of waste to incineration or to landfill. If you have bigger bin for the recyclables, then of course you pay less for the bin for the residual waste. So in a way, the carrot in form of this monetary incentive works always better than penalizing. And we have to remember that penalization in form of penalties, they require a lot of administrative decisions, administrative proceedings, yes, and that costs money to the society. So in the end, it is the citizen of the municipality you mentioned in the UK that will pay for all those apparatus to impose the fine on a citizen that doesn't care. Much better with incentives, I would say.
Going now to looking forward into the future, we have our plastic. It's both a curse and a blessing, I suppose, at the moment. How do you see the technological solution to this problem? Is it new materials, your kind of the recycling, the circular economy? How do you see that developing next few years?
Oh yes, the technology is advancing, definitely, and technology can help us to preserve the materials, including plastic materials, in the circular economy. However, it's not enough. It is very much dependent on the systems that surround the technology environment. And the systems will guarantee that, first of all, the waste that we generate, and it is quite much, 500 kilograms per capita a year,
especially
in
Christmas,
Europe.
I suppose, as well.
Yes, it is growing. It is based on the analysis. We know that the packaging waste increased during the Christmas period. So we need to have the systems to collect these waste categories, all of waste, what we refer to as municipal waste categories, in 100%. And this is in place in Europe, however, not in place in other regions of the world where we have the uncontrolled waste management, where the waste is not collected or is collected in a risky way for people that work with this so-called waste management. In Europe, this is less problematic. In Poland, almost 100% of the citizens have access to the waste collection systems. We have to, of course, secure that the waste is sorted, separated by the citizens into different waste categories. But that we know today will not be enough, especially for plastic packaging. The separate collection, so to speak, has its limits. And you mentioned the technology advancement. Yes, there is already a possibility to efficiently separate the plastics, not only into the group of plastics from, for example, metal or paper, but also into different polymers at the level of the downstream separation. So with this technology deployed today, we are able to separate and save and assign as substrates for recycling processes 90% of plastic packaging that we put on market today.
So that's something that we as consumers can actually educate ourselves to recognise in different levels, different structures, different properties of the plastic we use.
This is a very good question. As I mentioned, the separation has its limits. We are not as disciplined and as citizens of Japan who separate 20 categories at home. We don't have place for that. For us, it should be enough to separate plastic packaging from metal, paper, wood, and so on. Yes. And then the rest of the job should be done by the technology, and actually will be done in a more efficient way than if we were doing that at home.
A final question to you about does our love affair with plastics spike during the Christmas time, the Christmas period? Do we produce just a huge, massive amount of plastics than we'd usually produce at the end of the other times of the year? How does that work, do you think?
Yeah, the generation of products and packaging is increasing during Christmas period, as this is one of the most important celebrations during the year. And of course, we would like to give the best to our family members.
Kids' toys.
Yeah, so this is inevitable. The challenge is that the result of this consumption actually is paid by the citizens of the municipalities that have responsibility for the packaging waste. And actually, it should be the responsibility of the producers, manufacturers, which we talked about earlier. It's not states, it's not consumers that are responsible for this huge Pacific, for example, garbage patch. It is producers and manufacturers. So as long as they are responsible, and actually this is the European law related to extended producer responsibility for packaging, for the electric and electronic appliances, for batteries, as long as they take the cost for the post-consumer phase, it's more fair to the society, because it will not be a poor pensioner in Poland that will pay in her fee to the municipality for the waste management. It will be a consumer that has actually purchased those goods.
It's plastic age still. But Anna Larsson, thank you very much for coming onto the programme. Great to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Do join us next time for How We Got Here.